Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to How to Market Your Cyber Self, the Simply Cyber Original Series limited run 8 episode podcast where we are talking with marketing executive and expert Virginia Case, CEO of Stratic, on how we as cybersecurity practitioners and businesses can maximize our opportunity to brand ourselves, market ourselves, and really leverage these opportunities in a modern social media world. Today's episode is going to be a fantastic one. It's episode 6 of 8, and we are talking about personal branding in the digital age, most specifically how much is too much information? How much is TMI? We put a lot of ourselves out there. If you've been following the show for a while, you know we've been talking about personalizing and making it more authentic. But at some point, you begin to immerse your private self into your public self. And there are mechanisms that we can take advantage of. There are risks that we want to be mindful of. And Virginia is going to be shredding into all of those today. I can't wait. Personally, I've got a lot of questions for, so I know we're going to have a good time. As a programming note, typically this is live. However, because of Blackhat, this week, Virginia and I are recording this on Monday, August 7th. It is now August 9th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. This is recorded, but Virginia and I are live in chat. So if you have questions, drop them in chat, and Virginia and I will be responding live between 1 and 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on August 9th. I can't wait. Let's get into it. Hey, Virginia, how are you?
Hi, Gerry. Super excited to be here again.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm really, really excited. I already kind of teased it for everybody in chat before we got going. But this particular episode really resonates with me personally around TMI. I know I've made tons of mistakes because I didn't have an expert like you guiding me along my way over the last 3 years with Simply Cyber. And that's okay. The mistakes I've made are the mistakes I've made. But let's get right into it. And let's just dive in. Virginia, please tell me, help me understand the increasing importance of privacy and doxing yourself. And for those who are not aware, please define doxing.
Oh, I thought you were taking doxing.
I will say doxing. So really quickly, guys, if you're not familiar, you have your online persona and your virtual, world of, if you will, but where you are physically, what your house is, what your kids' names are, where you work, where you go to the gym, where you eat. These are very personal, private matters that if it gets out publicly, someone who maybe disagrees with you or it really, really agrees with you can show up at these places. This is called doxing yourself, and you can do it yourself by accident or intentionally, or somebody else can do it to weaponize it. And one of the most, extreme examples to really put a fine point on how dangerous it can be is the technique of swatting, where some unfortunate, misguided individual calls in a attack or claims that they are at your address and they are holding people hostage, and then law enforcement responds. And there have been multiple instances of just terrible, terrible stories because of that particular extreme form of doxing. So that's another reason why today's episode is so, so vitally important. So, Virginia, please explain the importance of privacy and doxing yourself.
So, with doxing, like you said, Gerry, there's so much that we need to be aware of and things that people don't necessarily think of as protected information. We saw this a lot earlier in social media when people would tag themselves checking in, and lots of different social media platforms actually rewarded you for saying that you were at a cafe or checking in someplace else where people could see that you were the mayor of those locations. That was great for those businesses, but it was not great for individuals. And as we know, everything lives on the internet forever. And
Mhm.
so that thing that you usually go to that could be in close proximity to your house, it raises different security levels that you need to be aware of. And so when we talk about doxing ourselves, it's kind of this weird balance of like, how do I show up as my authentic self and say, yep, I'm going to be going to Starbucks and it's my favorite thing to do in the morning. I'm actually a Krispy Kreme coffee kind of gal. But being able to like find those different things that you can be authentic with your crowd, but also not be worried about your safety. Like as an example, right now, me telling you that I'm a Krispy Kreme person means that you might show up with Krispy Kreme coffee for me, and I would be very happy about that. But I don't actually have a Krispy Kreme near my house, so K-Pods it is. That's a safe thing for me. But anybody who wishes ill will can find interesting and creative ways to hurt you. So, as you're looking at different ways of building your brand, getting yourself out there, finding different ways to amplify your voice, you need to be aware of the things that you're sharing. And that even though right now you may have some level of obscurity, in the future, we're hoping that that's not going to be true. And all of those things kind of come back in time. So I'm going to give you an example of a really big security practitioner who has given a little bit of doxing information about himself. So I'm talking about Brian Krebs. So as we know, Krebs on Security, a huge, wonderful resource for us to be able to know about all things cybersecurity. He has an About Him page on his website. I'm not going to go into it, but there are some things there that everybody considers to be normal information that we share about ourselves that could be used by a threat actor if you wanted to manipulate. And so, again, Brian's a very smart guy and he's got a lot of different defenses in place, so I'm not worried about mentioning his name here. But this kind of brings up the what's okay to share versus what's not okay to share. And Brian shares some of his hobbies, so that's okay to share. But things like you said, Gerry, what is your dog's name? What is your spouse's name? What are your kids' names? All of those things, not only are they potential password violations in the future if you're using that kind of low level of password security, but they're really ways that people can plug into different information about you that could potentially cause harm now or in the future.
Yeah, I know, for me myself, Virginia, and for those who are watching this who may not know, I've been doing, online social media and helping the community and build a foster community for about 3 years now. And on my morning live stream, every single Tuesday, I actually have a special segment for about 2 minutes called Tidbits Tuesday. And it's just a little fun thing I do for the community where I share something personal about myself, which I've been told like, wow, that's kind of a bold move, Gerry. But for me personally, it's like a way, the way that I talk to people through the camera, it's very asynchronous. It's very one-sided. And what I want to do is make more meaningful connections, right? So helping people break into cybersecurity and talking about current threats and stuff is really, really good. But I also identify it as a community that I'm a member of, and I want to identify. So, for example, I shared one of my earliest ones is that like I loathe and absolutely abhor sour cream. I think it's so disgusting, and the community has taken that now. So like anything, like it's not uncommon for someone to just like shout sour cream and stuff. That doesn't really dox me in any capacity, but there has been times I have shared things that I guess you could pretty much be able to relay and take advantage of. I've shared my kids' names and stuff like that. So as an expert, Virginia, should my concern primarily be around personal safety with TMI, or there's some other dimensions that I should be mindful of? And how, also as a follow-up question, how might I mitigate or manage the risk of information I've already exposed?
So, being able to control your narrative is important, and being able to figure out those different vehicles that can convey your message differently, you need to just be aware of. So, there's different platforms like Delete Me that you can use to protect your personal information, things that are out there that you just don't want people knowing. Now, it can't control everything. So, some of the stuff that I would recommend is figure out the different platforms that you can control your privacy. There are things that I want to share as pictures of my dogs with my friends on Facebook that don't need to be across the entire world. And that's why having two different profiles can really be helpful. But remember that it's hard to grow one audience, it's even harder to grow two. So, thinking about how you want to share that information, thinking about the different people that are potentially going to follow you in those places, it's kind of a good barometer for what should I share and how should I share it. One of the great safety tips that I just will always keep doing is when you are traveling somewhere, and it's kind of an anomaly here with Blackhat, is you can always talk about it after. But especially as we're going to industry events, being able to say things so that you are protecting your personal safety. But your online safety is also interesting and important from the aspect of like what settings are you going to use from the different platforms to be able to protect what you have. Interesting news out from Zoom already about them using AI scrapers and taking some stuff from there. So be aware of the platforms that you are sharing in and how long that data is going to live. In the Internet Archive, it exists. There's lots of stuff. Even if you take it down, it lives. So, and those people who want to find it can find it. Does that answer your question, Gerry?
It does. It does. And I do want to give a shout out. And if you have any follow up thoughts, I'd appreciate it. one of the really interesting things that I noticed about Meta Threads, which is like the new social media platform that's kind of like Twitter, is that they actually have a policy platform wide that any content that's over 300 days old will be deleted. Now, I didn't look in to see if you could opt out of that or whatever, but it's just a policy 300 days old. And I actually think in the modern day, especially as I have kids who are coming into technology and will be getting on social media, they're not, informed enough to be able to understand that this lives forever. So I actually appreciate that this automatic 300-day deletion. So things that were socially acceptable in 2023 that are absolutely abominable in 2030 don't get reflected and brought into different lights. And we see all sorts of instances of things that are seemingly innocent in 1985, resurfacing in different contexts and perspectives. You have any thoughts about like kind of this shift to auto deletion after X amount of days, and do you think it'll actually grab hold industry wide?
Let me grab my tinfoil hat really quickly as we
Okay.
talk conspiracy theory. I don't think it ever really goes away. And I think that if somebody needs it later, it's being stored someplace. Now, the picture of my grilled cheese sandwich probably is not going to be critical for somebody else, but opinions, things like that, especially when we start getting into political sphere, people are collecting just based on the level of notoriety that somebody has or the potential that somebody has.
Hmm.
So I have a little bit of don't trust it. Just know that if you say something that is probably like my mother always said, if you don't want it on the front page of the New York Times, don't do it.
Yeah, agreed. So we're talking about what we think we should put out there. Let's kind of flip the narrative. Like, what should followers, what should people who are buying into a brand, buying into a community, buying into, somebody whose content they enjoy, what should they expect from public personas? What expectations?
Oh, unfortunately, the expectation is really high. And a lot of those magazines, as you're going out of the grocery store, really set that bar for us as normal humans to be like, oh, that's what they did to, lose 200 pounds. Wow. Or, oh my gosh, I have to have that recipe. That, if that is the favorite recipe of my favorite person, then I have to have that magazine. And we've gotten to this level of just voyeurism that people want to get into people's lives. And so it's important to understand that people will always want more. And you have to protect what you want to protect from being able to be manipulated or used to harm you. And I know that we're kind of on a negative bent for this, but there are things that we can think about too in terms of like what followers are hoping to get from you, which is that expertise, the authority by talking to other authorities. They want to trust you. And so that storytelling, those personal stories that you can tell that aren't going to damage you or that are going to be detrimental in time, we don't have a crystal ball unless you've got one. Do you have one? I don't have one.
I do not. No.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, I think that it makes sense for us to be as prudent as possible while being authentic. So I'm going to call your shirt into the frame here for a moment here, Gerry, and be like, okay, so what should followers expect from your garb? Tell me a little bit about Red Team Village.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Okay, so there's a couple interesting things here. One, I am primarily a GRC person. In fact, if you were to pick one dimension of the industry that I am the weakest at, offensive security, red team is where my weakness is. Now, I will be going to DEFCON this week, and I will be spending the entirety of my time, or 98% of my time, at Red Team Village. So I wanted to sponsor the village. I went ahead and purchased a shirt, which, the proceeds go to help the village. I bought a Red Team Village badge. I am very excited, but the reason that I'm doing that is because it is my weakest area of knowledge. So I like to go and engage with the red team folks and, get, basically kind of complement my gaps and my weaknesses in order to be more effective at helping other people and just being a better cybersecurity practitioner in general. So that's why I'm wearing Red Team Village gear right now, representing, kind of promoting it, and indicating my level of interest in that particular village this year.
And you just did a fantastic job. If I were coaching you, I would say change nothing because it's authentic to you. It gives context. It's all of those different things about you that, you gave personal details. You also gave the professional details, and it allows your audience to feel connected with you. Now, here I am wearing my sparkly collar. I have a big thing for sparkles. We've talked earlier in one of the other episodes about my obsession with sprinkles. This has to do with all shiny things, okay? This just crosses the board. So if somebody wants to bring me sprinkles, like game on, like it is a
Okay.
favorite place of mine. But like for me, pearls are actually kind of a theme for me because it's about grit, it's about perseverance, about surviving in the face of different types of odds. And for me, that's a personal story about the different things that I've been through. So it's kind of a subtle nod for me as a consistent thing. You'll see I wear pearl earrings or a pearl ring. Pearls are just kind of my normal thing. I'm a pearl girl. That's something that I can share in different venues about different levels of vulnerability that I want to share with different people at different times. And that's something that I can be, ratcheting up the exposure for myself or ratcheting it down. And so it's kind of a good contrast, you and me, at this point, to talk about what you're passionate about. And for me, using the entrepreneurial bent of the things that I've been through, the grit around that, the pearls fit for me on that. So
Yeah,
there are
you
some
know,
balance.
no, I love that, and I'd noticed your use of pearls, but I never really made that connection. So I appreciate you calling that out. And one thing that you said that I really want to reiterate for anyone in chat right now, and again, remember, drop your questions in chat. Virginia and I are live right now answering your questions. You said be authentic. Like if you know how they talk about like your 30-second elevator pitch or whatever. Like yes, you can have that and you can practice it, but I'm telling you, if you have like a script in your head, you're going to be, and I don't know how to explain this, but you're going to be reading it from a different part of your brain than your kind of true, authentic, emotional, somewhat vulnerable position. And I don't know human nature or if we have sixth sense or something, but like you can detect that immediately, right? You like it's called the BS meter, right? People talk about it all the time. Like if you're BS, yeah, people know, right? So I would strongly encourage be you. And in all honesty, like I actually before going live thought about putting a polo on instead of having the shirt off because I'm like, oh, this is a professional stream. We're talking about marketing. We're kind of doing high level stuff. And then I opted under Virginia's guidance or whatever, like own it, be you, Gerry. And right now this is who I am because I'm all jacked up and ready for Blackhat DEFCON and enjoying it. And as I'm walking around, this is me, this is who I am. And one other thing I want to point out, and I think this is important because it took me a while to kind of get this, like be who you are because spoiler alert, not everyone's going to like you. Okay, so do not try to please everybody. Like it sucks. I love people, but it sucks, and at the end of the day, you're not going to please everybody. So if you are you, the people that you are engaging with that become part of your circles, that become part of your community, they are there because they like you for you. If you are fabricating your identity, if you're trying to, wear a different shirt to fit into this crowd and different whatever to fit in this crowd, or I'm pretending to be a red teamer to fit in the village. No, like you're doing yourself a disservice, and you're actually bringing people into your community that are identifying with somebody that you are actually not. So, like with the red team stuff, I told him I'm like I'm going to a red team party on Thursday night, and I'm like it'll be nice to have a GRC guy clicking around. You know what I mean? Like so, I just kind of own that, and at the end of the day, I can sleep well at night. I can feel good because, I just am who I am. And if you're cool with that, let's rock. And if not, that's cool. Like there's plenty of other people for you to find and engage with, and everybody should be happy.
Authentically being yourself is the best message. I'm going to give one caveat to that though. If you have an opinion that is potentially damaging to a future brand that you are planning to own, think twice before saying it. It's really important for people to understand like there are people who have made entire careers about saying extreme things, and that's okay. But if you are starting out in your career and you are trying to gain a broader audience, neutral is better. So as we start talking about like the different pieces that you can share of yourself, it's important to take a stand. It's important to plant a flag. It's important for people to get to know different aspects of you that you want to have out in the world. But at the same point, think about like if you're going to take a huge stance against the color green. I hate the color green. The only color in the world is yellow. You got to make sure that you're making sense for yourself and your future self.
Yeah, it's a good point. So let's pivot over. How do you like? So there's a lot to keep track of over time. I've been doing it 3 years, like as a public brand or whatever you want to call it. What kind of techniques can we use to actually track and protect it? Because right now, Virginia, I am just YOLO. Like I'm just like, let's roll. So what can I do to help track that, or what can people do to kind of manage that in a more organized way?
YOLO is great. And especially as you're starting out, it's hard to put the analytics in place that you think makes sense. But there are a lot of platforms that will give you some of that user feedback in terms of how you're being out there in the world received. So, especially if you turn on creator mode inside of LinkedIn, they give you a lot of valuable analytics on your posts to see what people like or that they don't like. So, use those different platforms to help you. But remember that every piece of data that they store costs them money. So, screen grab stuff, put it into a spreadsheet, move some of that information off of their stuff onto your stuff so that you can control it. You can see the point in time now versus a year from now. And so also you can feel some of that gamification for yourself and some of the reward, because sometimes this can feel very, very thankless, especially if you're not going viral for the first time. And it's a challenge, right? Because
Yeah.
we look at some of these viral posts, we look at some of these guys and gals who've got 40,000 followers, 50,000 followers, and you're going, how did they get there? Is it too late for me? No, it's not too late for you. Get out there and start and use these metrics now to help you gauge, like, where am I 3 months from now? Where am I 6 months from now? So
Mhm.
that's the first place. The second place that you talked about here is like the personal brand versus the company brand. And since we've been talking with some entrepreneurs, a lot of what is important for you to track is your own personal prestige, or potentially you and a partner. But then also, how does that translate into a company or a brand? Because investors are going to be looking at specific information about you. And again, remember what you said in the past, we'll catch up with you. And make sure that when you're starting to track what's happening for that brand, that you've already started to protect it. So if you do have a company name and you want to make sure that you want to use it long term, spend the money on a lawyer to get it IP protected. And also, that'll help you to understand if you're infringing on somebody else's rights. I mean, that's kind of a first step, although it can be expensive in the beginning. You're smiling, Gerry.
No, I was just thinking, you are right about, trademarking your name or getting that IP. The thing is, if you're gonna pivot or whatever, you gotta, maybe you don't want to invest. You're just trying it out, see if it's gonna work. But if you are making a commitment to yourself to push and go forward with a particular company brand or, title, then roll on that. But and I can just tell you from my own experience, just to give you kind of a swag or an idea, because to me personally, Virginia, when I hear lawyers, I'm like, oh my God, like it's just like unbearable amounts of money, gobs of money. I can tell you personally that you could a ballpark figure would be $1,250 if you were going to invest in going through a lawyer and getting, and that includes like the filings with the Patent and Trademark Office in the U.S. and lawyer fees and all that stuff. So just to kind of center and anchor people's expectations on costs, it's like 1,250. But again, if you're doing it as an individual and just like, helping the community or building, a following for yourself, and maybe you're going to write a book or make a course or whatever, or you're doing it just to get hired, well, then maybe you don't need that. But if you're building something with the intent of it being a business, get acquired, or build it bigger, you may want to invest in that, because the worst thing you could possibly do, I would imagine, Virginia, is to invest time, money, energy, effort building up something and then having somebody legally take it away from you, because then you're basically building something for someone else.
And it's really important. There's a lot of different free resources out there. You can actually look at the US Patent and Trademark Office, USPTO, and they have a free search that you can start looking at word marks and things like that. So if you're trying to own an idea, it's okay. Go look at it and just see if it's expired or if it's active, and make sure that you're not violating somebody else's rights, because they put that time, energy, and money into that idea as well. And there's going to be a new idea. If this one didn't work, there's going to be a new idea. Don't worry. Creativity is something that you can come back to and find something else that resonates for you.
I love it. Now, Virginia, did you make a tool that people might be able to take advantage of to help track this?
I did. It's very simple, but it's a Google Sheet. So when we're starting to talk about your brand impression and how you get out into the world, one of the things that I help clients do is figure out what their brand saturation is for themselves and for their business, even just to start. Because if you've been out there, it's important to take an inventory of what you've been doing. And those of us who have been in the computer age typically have some digital information in the past that we should track. So an example here, I'm just using myself to be able to help you guys do the first field, but this is a spreadsheet that you guys can make a copy of and start filling out for yourself. So here, just going left to right, this is, if I Google my name, Virginia Stewart Case, this is what comes up. Now, the problem is that Virginia Case is not that unique of a name. Gerry Osier, you actually have a name twin as well.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
yeah.
And so when people are searching for you, if they don't have the search history in cyber, they may end up with him instead. But for me, there's a lot of case law that goes on. There's a lot of Virginia Stewarts out there. And so that's not me. So when I try to go out and brand myself, you can see here inside of the URL slug of LinkedIn that it's my full name, Virginia Stewart Case. So when I use my keyword, I may be looking at that. I may also try Virginia case to see what happens, and I'm filling out this entire spreadsheet from top to bottom to be able to see how I exist in the world. So if you do the drop down for me in column C, this tells me the different ways that I'm going to search the internet. So I may be doing this by putting a name into Google. So that's going to be Virginia Stewart Case. I might also put that inside of Google's image search or video search or news search to be able to see if there was anything there, or if I'm showing up in any additional results, like who knows, like it somehow it appeared. Also, it's also helpful to identify if people are using your name or likeness in competitor ads. And this is one of those ones where you should just be aware of it, especially as you grow in popularity, as your brand grows in popularity, as your company grows in popularity, being aware of people, what people are doing. And then also doing this with mobile search. So what I recommend, go into incognito mode on Google, and you can do that first and start seeing what's available out there. Especially if you've been clicking on your own links, you're going to get a false sense of what's out there, and Google's trying to serve you what they want you to see. But start with Google. And then if you want to go over to column D for me, these are the different search engines that I would recommend you checking out. So Google, Bing, Yahoo, DuckDuckGo. If you start to work more inside of the world of threat intelligence and you're starting to worry more about cyber, Yandex may be something, Baidu may be something. You may look into some of those more obscure search engines that are not as popular here in the United States, but you can use those to be able to see what is your presence. The next part of this is domain authority and page authority. And there's a free tool that I want you to check out. It's moz.com, like M is in Mary, O is in October, Z is in Zulu. And
Okay.
so when you do that,
let me say it again. Moz.
moz.com,
All right.
and they
Moz.
have a free tool that you can put inside of your Chrome extension, which is called the Moz bar. And so with Moz, you're able to start seeing the ranking that they give inside of all of the different ways that they rank websites. There you go. So you can add this and it will give you a domain authority and a page authority. It's a logarithmic scale of 1 to 100. Obviously, the higher you go, the harder it gets, to be able to see how much traffic somebody actually gets to the site from an authority and also reputation standpoint. That's kind of the simple version. So when you add the Moz bar into your Chrome toolbar, what'll happen is it'll show you the original page authority and domain authority of those pages. So you can see over time, is this a high value to me or not high value to me? Is this going to show up in a lot of search results or is it not? And so that's going to kind of give you that barometer for should I care or should I not care? Also, if you are starting out as an entrepreneur, you may have been asked to speak for a TED Talk. You may have asked to speak for a local community college. It runs the gamut of what you may have done, but it may have been captured on video. This is a really great way for you to also build out all of the different things that are out there in the world about you already so that you can use it to your advantage. And you can reach out to them, say, would it be okay for me to reshare this on my website? I'm going to reshare it on my social media. You don't have as much trouble sharing on social media, but if you do want to use it for your personal brand on your website, you really should ask permission first. But this is a great way for you to be able to determine, should I care about this or should I not?
I love it. All right. Oh shit. Almost. Oh, whoa, geez. I almost dropped my coffee there for a second there, Virginia. That would have been awful.
That would have been bad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, all right. So, MOZ, I'll put a link in that. I'll put a link to the Google Sheet below. We're almost at time, but let's pivot really quickly and make sure that we talk about strategies for owning your brand before you invest the time, which is one of the most valuable things you could possibly spend.
So part of this is going back to that inventory, figuring out where you may have been inconsistent. So as you have the opportunity for new platforms that are spinning up, think about the handles that you want to grab. And so we talked before about personal branding and about the different ways that you can customize your LinkedIn URL. YouTube recently released an ability for you to change your handle on that. All of these different places that are spinning up, pay attention. You may not use it. And we've talked even in the past about make sure that you're going to be active on a channel that you feel compelled by. If you are compelled by TikTok, grab that handle. Figure out the different places that are most likely for you to be. But remember, if people are really trying to follow you in those venues, maybe you should consider whether or not that is where your audience is, and maybe you should be building out in TikTok. Maybe you should be building out on LinkedIn. But grabbing those handles to begin with makes good sense. That being said, just remember that there are abandoned MySpace pages out there on the internet. And
Hmm.
so those things still exist. And so when you start doing the branding for yourself, think about how you want those handles to represent your brand. And then you can also do that research to say if you want to be the cyber diva, the cyber gal, the cyber devo, whatever you want to pick. And devos are a thing, by the way. The thing is, when you're looking at the world of different handles and what's already saturated, think about how you actually want to build the brand. Is it around that persona? Is it around being a faceless brand? Or is it about putting your face out there? For me, my company Stratic has had a lot more sunshine than me, actually, because Stratic is actually a lot easier to find than Virginia Case. So now, getting back out there, pushing myself as a thought leader, I'm starting to own my name and my middle name on that part as well. And it's just part of figuring out if you need to start owning domains as well. So we've talked about websites in the past and whether or not it makes sense for you to actually invest in that. And this is one of those things where it doesn't hurt to go and buy the domain. You can choose to use it later. You can choose to abandon it. It's one of those ones that may not be as hard for you to actually acquire. And from a cost standpoint, it's worth the investment because later it could be a lot harder. Does that help?
It does, absolutely. So we're just about at time, but really quickly, I want everybody in chat to know right now that you can actually book time with Virginia Case to talk about marketing your cyber self. This is a no cost, just a 15-minute cup of coffee with Virginia. Obviously, connect with her on LinkedIn if you forget what the URL is or you just want to DM her really quickly. But Virginia, just really quickly, why would someone want to book a 15-minute appointment with you?
So the reason that I do coffee breaks is the opportunity to meet different people from different walks of life and also help them on their journey, whether it's an individual journey for finding their own next career move, or if it's as an entrepreneur trying to find what their next place is going to be for building their idea or their product or their service. And so it's really fun for me to work with entrepreneurs. That's my exciting place. I love people who are in that growth stage of their lives. And so that really doesn't happen chronologically. You could be in a growth stage when you're 15, you could be in a growth stage at 80. When you're looking at that stage, you may need to bounce some ideas off of somebody. And so think about this as an opportunity to bounce some ideas off of an expert as a quick coffee date. The one thing I do ask is that if you do schedule time with me, please show up. I get sad if I get stood up. So please come meet with me. There's an easy way to book it through Calendly. And if you need to reschedule, reschedule. But I'm really looking forward to meeting with you. And I've had some great conversations already with the Simply Cyber community. And so would love to connect with you.
Love it. All right, everybody, the link's right there. Connect with Virginia. You know that she can help you, and she's a marketing whiz. I have enjoyed this particular conversation, but I'm really, really enjoying the How to Market Your Cyber Self series, this podcast run that we've been doing. We've only got 2 more episodes left to round out the full 8 episodes, but you can go check them out on the Simply Cyber podcast channel over on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, your podcast app of choice. My name's Gerry. On behalf of Virginia Case, thank you for taking the time. We had a great experience today, and look for the next episode 2 weeks from today. Be good, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that content. Keep the cybersecurity train going by connecting with the other Simply Cyber community resources. We have the Discord server that's lively and always keeps the conversation going. You can connect with me directly on LinkedIn. And also every single weekday morning on the Simply Cyber channel, we're doing live daily cyber threat briefings, 8 a.m. Eastern time, as well as Thursday at 4:30 p.m. We're doing live stream interviews with industry experts, and we produce videos that we push out every Wednesday morning. I'm Gerry from Simply Cyber. I hope you enjoyed the content, and we'll see you in the next one.